Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Narayanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Narayanaya. Shuklambaradharam Vishnum Sasivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavighnopashantaye Ananta Samsara Samudratara Naukaitabhyam Guru Bhaktitabhyam Vairagya Samrajyata Pujanabhyam Namo Namah Shri Guru Padukabhyam Anjananandanam Veeram Janaki Shokanasanam Kapisham Vande Lanka Bhayankaram Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Govindaya Namo Namaha Govindaya Namo Namaha Yadangri Pankeru Harenu Lagnam Nibiyaniram Vimadantarangaha Janami Tattvam Nijamatmarupam Janami Tattvam Nijamatmarupam Tam Naumi Narayana Tirthamaryam Tam Naumi Narayana Tirthamaryam. Namaskaram, all of you. Welcome to the 58th session of Krishna Leela Tarangini. For a quick recap, in session 57, we enjoyed another popular Taranga Kirtanam of Narayana Tirtha, Govindamiha Gopika Anandagandham Sanandam Avalokayamo Mukundam. After the last session, several of the Satsangam devotees from North America and YouTube watchers from India reached out to mention that they found the prayer session especially interesting from the angle of explanations on Lasya and Tandava and various forms of dance highlighted in and by Natya Sastra and how Tirtha effectively utilized them in his various Tarangams. But the devotees also raised questions on how Tirtha's works directly contributed to the growth of the famous Kuchipudi dance form in particular and other popular forms in general since the 17th century. There was a request that I elaborate more on such background, which is admittedly a vast subject. Nevertheless, I will attempt to highlight some of those aspects, conscious of my extremely limited understanding on practical expose on dance forms. First, we will see a bit more on Kuchipudi dance style as of today. It is one of the significant and ancient classical dance forms with firm roots to the Natya Shastra. Different theories abound as to its earliest form, or should we say, form presentation on stage. One work says it was somewhere between 200 BCE or before Common Era and 200 Common Era, namely a span of 400 years of guesswork. Ardent followers, however, place the origin of Natya Shastra to 500 BCE. As we noticed in the last session, the two major forms of dance presentations, namely Lasya and Tandava, have their genesis, roots, and evolution in Natya Shastra. The dance drama tradition in Andhra Desam is very ancient, and sage Bharata attributes much of this graceful movement to Andhra Desam or the region as it existed then, while discussing Kaishika Vritti. Natya performances highlighting stories from Saivism, especially in Telugu-speaking regions of southern India, are evidenced in copper inscriptions from the 10th century and mentioned as Brahmana Melas or Brahma Melas. In those times, dance drama performances were mostly enacted by Brahmins, as per 20th century writers and researchers such as Sunil Kothari and Mohan Kokar. This form of dance was reported to have been showcased by the musical and dancing Bhakti traditions of Vaishnavism, which spread in the second millennium, whose devotees were known as Bhagavatalu in Andhra Desam and Bhagavatas in Tamil region of southern India. In Andhra, this performance art evolved to Kuchipudi, while in Tamil Nadu, it became known as Bhagavata Mela Natakam. It is also averred that both the Telugu Kuchipudi and Tamil Bhagavata Mela were strongly influenced by the classical Yakshagana prevalent in Karnataka Desam or southwestern region, all three supported by and based on Karnataka Sangeetam. While, however, these individual dance drama traditions maintained significant differences as to the costumes, makeup, presentation structure, interpretation, and creative innovations in storytelling. Scholars believe that the Kuchipudi style emerged and stabilized thanks to the 13th century Ganga rulers from Kalinga, who were inspired by the 11th century poet Jayadeva's Gita Govindam, which in the modern world we call Ashtapadi, or the 24 Ashtapadis. This royal sponsorship and patronage encouraged drama troupes in Andhra Desam to adopt strongly to Radha Krishna themes into the then prevailing versions of classical Kuchipudi practiced until then. These artists were regionally addressed as Vaishnava Bhagavatulu. While the foundation of Kuchipudi is unequivocally the great Natya Shastra, the history of the modern form of Kuchipudi, and more particularly the hagiography of Siddhendra, popularly referred to as Siddhendra Yogi, have always been a subject of disputes between two factions of the aficionados of Kuchipudi, while both those devoted practitioners were and are nevertheless devoted abhimanis of the famous Kuchipudi dance form. This dispute typically begins with Siddhendra's life story. One set of dancers, scholars, and historians place the date as 13th century, and the other set argues that since Narana Tirtha's hagiography is no longer in dispute and already accepted as the 17th century, if Yogi were to be Tirtha's disciple, the hagiography of Siddhendra has to conform to that 17th century narrative. This is yet another topic for yet another PhD, but we will accept this 17th century narrative for our purposes of analysis. Siddhendra Yogi, originally known as Siddhappa, is the reputed author of Bhama Kalapam, the earliest recorded dance drama of the Kuchipudi repertoire. Siddhendra is believed to have both established and propagated Kuchipudi as the authentic dance form. While most of the Kuchipudi dancers accept Siddhendra's biography as undeniable fact, the lack of substantive hagiographical evidence has caused scholars to question even the historicity of Bhama Kalapam's ostensible authorship. To remain within the framework of our exercise for this session, we will limit our search to acknowledge Siddhendra as the disciple of Narayana Tirtha. Getting back to Kuchipudi's tale, a great many historians write that after relative obscurity for several centuries, the modern version of Kuchipudi had a renaissance thanks to Narayana Tirtha, happened to be the great Advaita Vedantin, hailing as Tirtha Narayana Yati in various books in publications in Andhra Pradesh. This Tirtha Narayana Yati, who belonged to the 1650-1745 cycle, is none else than our Narayana Tirtha, whose magnum opus Krishna Leela Tarangini is the current subject of discussion. As per these historical records found in Andhra Desham, especially referring to Kuchipudi, Narayana Tirtha took the sannyasa very early in his life, which we have seen earlier while describing the life of Narayana Tirtha. Tirtha authored Sri Krishna Leela Tarangini as a libretto or opera text for a musical or dance drama. Tirtha is hagiographically verified to be the 17th century scholar, saint, and poet, and Kuchipudi followers therefore conclude that Siddhendra Yogi founded the modern day version of Kuchipudi tradition, highly influenced by Tirtha's Krishna Leela Tarangini and also Parijata Apakaranam, the well-known Yakshagana in Telugu, and Haribhakti Sudharnavam, about which very little is known today. But all these three happen to be great works of Sri Narayana Tirtha. I don't intend to introduce more confusion on the biographies or hagiographies, but it is pertinent here that Indian Film Division released in 1973 a two-part documentary film titled Kuchipudi Dance, Ancient and Modern, wherein it is mentioned that the village Kuchipudi near Machilipatnam in Andhra Pradesh fostered a dance form named after it, and then the village was known at that time as Kuchelapuram, where Siddhendra Yogi reportedly settled down in the 15th century, which date is, as I described a little bit earlier, is questionable due to reasons elaborated earlier in this session. Once again, you may recollect, if Siddhendra happened to be a disciple influenced by Narayana Tirtha, and Narayana Tirtha's date has been finalized, Siddhendra could not have been from the 15th century as averred by the newsreel of Indian Film Division. The part one of this 20 minutes film from the Indian Film Division is available in YouTube since 2020 and viewed by only a few thousand Abhimanis. That seems to show how much interest people have for this kind of history, even though produced by Indian Film Division. I also happened to see yet another YouTube movie, a 1 hour presentation made in 2012, titled Kuchipudi Revisited, with a slightly better viewership of about 23,000 viewers globally for the last 10 years. Lastly, for those of you who would have some interest in knowing the background of Kuchipudi from a non-resident Indian from the US, there is a monograph titled Impersonations, the Artifice of Brahmin Masculinity in South Indian Dance, published in 2019 by the author Harshita Mruthunti Kamath, a faculty member of Emory College, Atlanta, Georgia. Finally, one fact emerges which almost all fans, followers, students, and teachers of this great style of dance agree incontrovertibly. Kuchipudi over the last 350 years have relied in increasingly, if not mostly, on Krishna Leela Tarangini and the gems of slokams, padyams, gadyams, and geetams presented are all from Narana Tirtha's magnum opus Krishna Leela Tarangini. I will attempt another round of digression a bit later on how Tirtha highlighted the Lakshana Sastras for modern day Bharatanatyam through his Geetam, Slokams, and Tarangam presentation, somewhat similar to what we touched upon Kuchipudi today. Let us move on to Tirtha's descriptions of how the Gopis and also the celestial women watching from their Pushpaka Vimanams showered benedictions on Sri Krishna and highlighted their sentiments on Rasa Leela. Let us also listen to Slokams 16 and 17 of Tarangam 7 before we proceed further.
Vanabhuvi Varanaryo Rasagoshti Garita Alagulagupadadi Nyasa Vedaischa Natyehi Sarasamabhinayantya Nandasunum Bhajante Abhinayantya Sarasam Nandasunum Bhajante Muhuravi Suranaryo Rasa Leela Vilasam Jaguriti Divi Divyasyandana Nandavantyah Abhinayam Abhitasam Vallavinam Murare Adhikam Abhinayantyah Utpavrityarchayantyah
Dhruva Matya Mukha Mukyasthala Vedehi Atantyo Vana Bhuvi Varanaryo Rasa Goshti Garishtaha Alaghu Lagu Padadi Nyasa Vedaischa Natyehi Sarasam Abhinayantyo Nandasonum Bhajante. This is a description of how the stage is set for Rasa Leela. In the forest area, these beautiful gopastris or gopikas or gopis who were well-versed in the community play of Rasa or Rasa Leela wandered about in tune with various prominent and popular rhythmic patterns or talas such as Dhruva and Matya, dancing fluently, of course, gracefully, to different types of footwork, some light-footed, some heavy-footed, etc. These gopis offered homage to the son of Nanda. Muhurapi Suranaryo Rasa Leela Vilasam Jaguriti Divi Divyasyandana Nandavatyaha Abhinayam Apitasam Vallavinam Murarehe Adhikam Abhinayantyaha Pushpa Vrishtayarchayantyaha. Again, the divine damsels who enjoyed in the beautiful heavenly chariots in the sky, they also joined these gopastris in praising the beauty of the Rasa play. That's why in this particular session you will see some benedictions from the gopis, some from the celestials in alternate assignments. The entire Tarangam is like that going forward. And the dancing of the four of Mura and the Gopa ladies themselves dancing and showering flowers on the dancers below. So not only that the Gopasris were doing elegant footwork there, setting the stage for Rasa Mandalam, the divine damsels who are watching there from their aerial chariots are also showering flowers on these Gopastris, partly in jealousy but partly in admiration, waiting to watch the Rasa Leela that is now being introduced. Let us listen to Geetam 6 of Tarangam 7 or Song 65 from the commencement.
Dhruva Mandala Panditam Vadujana Mandala Migonatam Dhruva Mandala Vadujana Mandala Migonatam Bhavasagara Tarakam इरावरि भावुक सुलक्षितं सागर तारकम् कृतमध्यममन्तर्गतिरवलोकयत् सुन्दरी कृतपुण्यकबलात्मकं हरिं परिपश्यते व्रजौकसाम् कृतपुण्यबलात्मकं हरिं परिपश्यते व्रजौकसाम् निपताकपताकसुकरैः कटकामुकशिलीमुखैः निपताकपताकसुकरैः कटकामुकशिलीमुखैः परभावरसोद्गट परैरपि वीक्षण सुशिक्षितैः तनुमध्य नियोजित करैरपि नाट्यरसोत्कटाः नारायण तीर्थकृतं गीतं यदि जनतोषणम् नारायण तीर्थकृतं गीतं यदि जनतोषण नारायण तीर्थकृतं गीतं यदि जनतोषण तोषण
This may be an appropriate place to highlight Tirtha's passion to dance forms, especially the terms and expressions of Bharata Muni's Natya Sastra. There are many powerful terms and expressions between the two stanzas, pregnant with meaning and context as well. Most, if not all, the words can be averred to have originated from Natya Sastra. Let us start with Natya Rasotkataha. Don't think that these cowherdesses Gopis are ignorant of the finest of aesthetics. This is the compliment given by celestials who are expert in dances. They call these Gopis Natya Rasodgataha. They are expert dancing with their hands elegantly placed on their hips. Tanumadhya Niyojita Karairapi shows how unparalleled these women are while watching Krishna, the greatest expert in Dhruva Mandala. The aesthetic form of Rasa Leela, standing cross-legged and playing on the magical flute and mesmerizing the entire Prapancham creation. The ladies are no less. They dance in an expert fashion, super fast at times. Dhruta Madhyamam Antaragatihi. Sometimes they are super fast, Dhruta. Madhyamam at medium tempo, and at times Antaragatihi, super slow at times. They know how to really do rasa dance in all the three paces or all the three speeds and depict the finest form of Sringara rasa that emanated from an amalgam of Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika and Vyabhichari, all the four aspects of Bhakti rasa. Then the same Gopis amazes with their expertise in demonstrating Tripataka Pataka Sukaraihi Kataka Mukha Shili Mukhaihi. What are these and where do they come from, and how Tirtha has integrated these as amazed expressions of the celestials, admiring at the expertise of the simple cowherdesses in their rasa dance. To understand all these, we need to first see the background of Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika and Vyabhichari. These are the various bhavas. Then about rasa, and finally the medium to bring out the rasa of rasa. Since this is not an exploratory or grammatical lecture on Natya Sastra or the forms of dance styles, I will attempt at the references very briefly, which might help understand an overview for all these and the need for introducing all these terms by Tirtha and how Tirtha became aesthetically motivated to highlight every one of them in the context of rasa and rasa. Yato hastat tato drishtihi, yato drishtis tato manaha, yato manaha tato bhavaha, yato bhavas tato rasaha. The profound saying in existence for over 2000 years amidst mankind is from one of the oldest body of treatises in Sanskrit, Bharata Shastra or Bharata's Natya Shastra. In the day and age where the most sacred Ashtanga Yoga and affiliated practices of yoga, which are more than 5,000 years old, have been reduced for commercial advantages, and newer names such as cycle yoga, yin yoga, sleep yoga, and other popular names given for hatha yoga, branding each one of them with their own expertise of naming them. No wonder the above statement of sage Bharata has also become a Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and the like guru's fodder for modern interpretation. But it is somewhat true that even after 2000 years, this particular statement in Sanskrit can be applied in every context of human life, existence, subsistence, and success materially and spiritually. Yato hastat tato drishtihi, yato drishtis tato manaha, yato manas tato bhavaha, yato bhavas tato rasaha. Simplistically explained, where the hands, hasta, go, there go the eyes, or drishti. Where hasta is there, drishti is there. Where the eyes are, goes the mind. Where the mind goes, there is an expression of inner feeling or bhava. And where there is bhava, mood or sentiment, experience is evoked. What is the experience? Rasa. Tirtha demonstrated this aspect of yato hastat tato drishtihi, yato drishti tato manaha, yato manas tato bhavaha, yato bhavaha tato rasaha, time and again throughout the work, that the gopis in ecstasy were showing signs of their passion through mudras. Tanumadhya niyojita karairapi. That is one of the statements there in the song. While their eyes were focused on Krishna and minds merged in his feelings, the gopis felt the rasa in the culmination of rasa siddhi. Natya Shastra, often referred to as Bharatanatyam Shastra or Bharata's Natya Shastra, is a detailed treatise and a handbook on dramatic art that deals with all aspects of classical Sanskrit theatre. It's a comprehensive work, at least understood to be 2000 years old. It is believed to have been written by the venerable sage Bharata, who was also a priest, who belonged to the 1st century BCE, if not well before that. Its many chapters contain detailed treatments of all the diverse arts that are embodied in the classical Indian concept of the drama, including dance, music, poetics, and general aesthetics. Its primary importance lies in its justification of Indian drama as a vehicle of religious enlightenment. The surviving manuscripts of significantly later date consist of 36 chapters containing approximately 6,000 verses, though the good old tradition refers to a text of 12,000 verses split between 36 chapters. The structure comprises a series of accounts on various aspects of theatrical arts narrated by the legendary author Bharata. The names and succession of chapters vary in different manuscripts. Trupataka, Pataka, Sukaraihi, Katakamuka Shilimukaihi, Parabhava Rasotkata Parairapi, Vikshana Suchikshitaihi, Tanumadhya Niyojita Karairapi, Natya Rasotkataha. Narayana Tirthakritam, Geetam Yadijana Toshanam. That's why we are able to enjoy it even right today. The second stanza of Geetam 65, as I narrated just now, is the highlight of dance poses, mudras, feelings, and absolute focus, raising these simple cowherdesses, identifying with the Brahman through Rasa Leela. Love for Krishna, the great Keshava, reaches the supreme state of bliss when its ingredients are fulfilled. By means of Vibhava, Anubhava, Satvika, and Vyabhichari, hearing and chanting are activated. And the devotee is able to taste love for Krishna. Then attachment for Krishna or permanent ecstasy, otherwise known as Tahi Bhava, becomes the fruition of devotional service, namely Bhakti Rasa. This is the summary of Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela. And there is a special sloka, 47th sloka in the Madhya Leela, which highlights this description. What are those permanent ecstasies that one feels for Bhagavan? Neutrality, servitorship, and so on, are mixed with all other ingredients, which are all pure. Devotional service in love of Bhagavan is transformed and becomes completely composed of transcendental rasas or mellows. Rasas, if you want to translate in English, the nearest equivalent is mellows, but that doesn't really bring out the beauty of it. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or the second canto, first chapter, sloka 4 and 5, by Sri Rupa Goswami, a disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who lived between 1489 and 1564, the following definition comes up for understanding. Atasyaha kesavastehe lakshitaya nigadyate samagri pariposhena paramarasa rupata. Incidentally, I have talked about Sri Rupa Goswami earlier, but for recap, he happened to be the brother of Sanatana Goswami, who was one of the 6 disciples of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Kali Yuga Avatara of Sri Sakshat Krishna. The meaning of this sentence which I read out, or the poem I read out, Atasyaha Kesavastehe, is love for Bhagavan Kesava reaches the supreme state of being completely composed of rasas when its ingredients are fulfilled. What is a rasa or mellow, and what are the prerequisites and characterizations of rasas? A mellow, transparently appearing transcendental, all right, but contradicting mellows, lacking some of the mellow's necessities, is known as rasabhasa. An overlapping rasa by intense devotees who know how to enjoy and absorb such great transcendental rasas. Such rasas are called Uparasa, which is submellow, Anurasa, which is known as imitation transcendental mellow, and Aparasa, opposing transcendental mellow. Thus, the overlapping of transcendental mellows is described as being first grade, second grade, or third grade. When the 12 rasas, such as neutrality, servitorship, and friendship, etc., are all characterized by adverse Sthayi Bhava, Vibhava, and Anubhava ecstasies, they are known as Uparasa or submellows. An example of this can be seen in a song by Kavi Surdas or Kavi Sur or Surdasa as he is known. Bhakta Surdas or Saint Surdas, for an understanding, reportedly lived between 1478 and 1583, a very long life of 105 years. He was a famous poet, a saint, and a singer. He was one of the 8 principal disciples of Sant Vallabhacharya Mahaprabhu, who lived between 1479 and 1531, a contemporary of Surdasa. Vallabhacharya Mahaprabhu was the Jagat Guru and founder of the Pushti Marga Bhakti tradition that followed Shuddha Advaita Brahmavada or Vedanta, which Vallabha founded after his own interpretation of Vedanta. Surdas lived during reign of Emperor Akbar, who lived between 1542 and 1606. Surdas was born blind and yet the most influential poet of Braj Bhasha and the Bhakti movement after Sant Tulasidas. Surdas, born blind, was believed to have received a harsh treatment from his family, prompting him to run away from home at the tender age of 6 when he joined a group of singing mendicants. Surdas memorized most of the Bhagavatam and other Sanskrit works when he was a boy listening from wandering monks. At age 18, Surdas met his future guru, Sant Vallabha, and soon became the foremost of the Ashtachap, or the 8 disciples. Sant Surdas, the prolific composer, is credited with works such as Sursagar, Sursaravali, Naladamayanti, Baihalo, and Sahitya Lahari, Dasamaskanda Tika, Nagalila, Bhagavat, Govardhan Leela, Sur Pachisi, Sur Sagar Sar, Pran Pyari, etc., etc., a total of 16 works, the most important being Sur Sagar. Surdas spent most of his years in Vrindavan or Braj and created the epic literary work known as Sur Sagar. After his meeting with Vallabhacharya, he became a typical monk, a wandering monk, and lived on Bhiksha, offered voluntarily, singing his bhajans and lecturing on Krishna and Vedanta. Similar to the Unjavati tradition followed by Bhagavatas like Tyagaraja Swami, even the Mughal Emperor Akbar reportedly honored Surdasa. Surdas' prolific work, Sur Sagar, or otherwise known as Ocean of Melody, was believed to be a collection of 100,000 poems in Braj Bhasha, while however only about 8,000 are said to have survived as of today. Of those, hardly 600 are said to be in print. Maybe we can call not out of print also. Braj dialect of Hindustani was considered to be rather crude or unrefined when the literary languages in northern India were primarily Persian and Sanskrit. It is averred that Sursagar lifted Braj Bhasha from the status of a vulgate into that of a literary language. Because for a very long time, people considered Braj Bhasha to be just a colloquy and a dialect not worthy of placing along with some leading literary languages. But Sursagar really placed it on par with other literary languages. The philosophy of Surdas' entire works reflects the times he lived in. He was very much immersed in the Bhakti movement and that was sweeping most of India by that time. Suddha Advait Brahmavada Vedanta is based upon the spiritual metaphor of the Radha Krishna Leela, the exalted celestial relationship of Radha and Bhagavan Krishna. This is also derived from earlier saints such as the great Kabir Das. A song from Surdas which reflects the sentiments of Tirtha through the Gopis, leading to the most important chapter of Rasa Leela, albeit one of many such, highlights the yearning of the Jivatman to merge with or blend with Paramatman and has been the central theme for a myriad divine poets since the 7th century. Closely looked at, this song will give you the essence of Puchimar. The sentiment of Sur is drawn from Sukha Bhagavatam, describing a gopi named Radha, offering some barter and asking Krishna to become Radha and vice versa. The style of this poetry is unique to Surdas, who felt a direct relationship with Krishna. Let us now listen to that bhajan or song.
Shyamaturi Murali Bajao, 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 Shyamaturi Jogi Jogi Gan Varo Murali Jogi Jogi Gan Varo Murali Sohi Sohi Gan Sunao Jogi सोई गान सुनाओ श्याम तोरी मुरली बजाओ श्याम तोरी मुरली बजाओ हमारी बिंदिया तुमको लगाओ हमारी बिंदिया तुमको लगाओ मैं सिर मुकुट लगाऊं मैं सिर मुकुट लगाऊं हमारी बिंदिया तुमको लगाऊं मैं सिर मुकुट लगाऊं हमारी सुनरिया तुम बहनों श्याम हमारी सुनरिया तुम बहनों श्याम हमारी सुनरिया तुम बहनों श्याम मैं पीतांबर ओढ़ूं मैं पीतांबर ओढ़ूं मैं पीतांबर श्याम तोरी मुरली बजाओ श्याम तोरी मुरली बजाओ श्याम तोरी हमारी कंगनुआ तुम बहनों श्याम हमारी कंगनुआ तुम बहनों श्याम मैं तुम्हारी सब बाऊं मैं तुम्हारी सब बाऊं सुनो श्याम श्याम सुनो श्याम श्याम सुनो श्याम तुम बनो राधिका सुनो श्याम तुम बनो राधिका मैं नंदलाल कगलाऊं मैं नंदलाल कगलाऊं मैं नंदलाल कगलाऊं कगलाऊं श्याम तोरी मुरली बजाओ श्याम तोरी मुरली बजाओ श्याम तोरी मुरली 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 बजाओ
Unless one has the heart to feel the sentiment as coming from Surdas in this song may sound or appear somewhat silly, but that is the essence of the process of unification with the ultimate Brahman, where the Jivatman and Paramatman merge. In this case, the Saguna Brahman is Krishna, with whom the Gopi wants to merge. And it is a very nice way of Surdas explaining the barter. First, this Gopi, who is named Radha, is asking Shyam, hey, will you allow me to play your flute? If you allow me, I will fill you with sweet music through your own flute. And I will only do it for you and only you. And then I will offer my bindiya, and I myself will place it on your forehead. But instead, in barter, why don't you give me your crown or tiara? And I'll give you my half sari or shawl, which I wear on top, in place of your pitambara. So let us swap the clothes. Hey, Shyam, Surashyam, meaning it can be interpreted anyway, but it is actually Shyam who is Sur's favorite. Why don't you become Radhika and let me become Krishna and then go around announcing that I am Shyam? Is that okay with you? That is the song. Rupa Goswami defined Bhakti Rasa in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in yet another sloka, the fifth sloka of chapter 1, second canto. Vibhavair anubhavaischa satvikair vyabhicharibihi swadhyatvam hridi bhaktanam anita shravanadibihi esha krishna ratihi sthayi bhavo bhakti raso bhavet. Through the processes of hearing and so on, when the Sthayi Bhava or Rati for Krishna becomes meshed with Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika Bhava and Vyabhichari Bhava, produces an extraordinary taste in the heart of the devotees. Then it is called Bhakti Rasa. That's how Rupa Goswami defines Bhakti Rasa. What is Sthayi Bhava or permanent mood? Sri Rupa designs Sthayi Bhava as follows. Aviruddhan viruddham shacha bhavan yo vashatam nayan surajeva virajet sastayi bhava uchyate. Controlling the opposite and conducive bhavas, that which rules over them like a king is called Sthayi Bhava. If that's the explanation, we come across so many names in the context of Sthayi Bhavas. What are they? There are 5 types of primary Sthayi Bhavas. These are known as Suddha Sthayi Bhava, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Different devotees have exhibited Sthayi Bhavas in different methods. And those are the 5 primary bhavas. There are also 7 secondary bhavas or ratis that can transiently function in place of the Sthayi Bhava. These ratis are Hasya, Shoka, Krodha, Utsaha, Bhaya, Jugupsa, and Vismaya. What are these? Laughter, grief, anger, enthusiasm, fear, disgust, and astonishment. Although they are actually a type of Vyabhichari Bhava, Sri Rupa includes them as secondary ratis out of deference to Bharata Muni. What are Vibhavas? Vibhavas excite or agitate the Sthayi Bhava. Sri Rupa Goswami explains that Vibhava is of 2 types, Alambana or foundation and Uddipana or stimulant. Krishna is the Alambana Vibhava per se in the context of Bhakti. In other words, he is the very foundation or the reason for our Bhakti. Sri Rupa Goswami extensively describes Krishna's specific qualities in the context of his acting as the foundation or support that excites a devotee's Sthayi Bhava more and more for him. For example, Krishna's beautiful blackish form playing the flute, wearing the peacock feather and a forest flower garland Vaijayanti can excite the Sthayi Bhava of Madhurya in a devotee and elevate it to a state of the highest rasa. Uddipana refers to a stimulus. A devotee's Sthayi Bhava may become agitated upon seeing something that reminds each one of them to Krishna, such as a peacock feather. The minute somebody said devotee sees peacock feather, Krishna is reminded. Anybody doing a flute recital, immediately my mind goes to Krishna. The devotee's mind really gets tuned to Krishna. So these are all called Uddipana or stimulus. These stimuli directly take you to Bhagavan. Sri Rupa discusses these different Uddipanas also in some detail in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Anubhava or external effect is another bhava. The result of agitation of the Sthayi Bhava by the Vibhava is both internal and external. Sri Rupa explains Anubhavas in a sloka. Anubhavastu chittastha bhavanam avabodhakaha te bahir vikriya prayaha prokta udbhaswara akyaya. Anubhavas, also called udbhaswaras, are brilliant manifestations, are generally external transformations that reveal the bhavas in the chitta or mind. Examples of anubhavas are dancing, singing, shouting, laughing, rolling on the ground, and so on. A famous example of an anubhava, particularly rolling on the sand on the ground, is by Akrura, who did Anga Pradakshinam as he entered Vrindavan to feel the earth on which Krishna walked. Sattvika Bhava or internal effect. Shri Rupa explains Satvika Bhavas as follows. Krishna Sambandhibihi Sakshat Kinchitva Vyavadhanataha Bhavais Chittam Ihakrantam Sattam Ityuchyate Budaihi Sattadasmat Samutpanna Ye Bhavas Tetu Satvikaha. The chitta or mind which is possessed by the bhavas in relation to Krishna by the five primary Sthayi bhavas of Shuddha, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya and Madhurya, directly and indirectly by the secondary bhavas, which I explained as Hasya, Shoka, Krodha, Utsaha, Bhaya, Jugupsa and Vishmaya, is called Sattva. The bhavas that arise from this Sattva alone are called Sattvika bhavas. Sattvika bhavas are internal effects which cause visible symptoms in the body that include perspiring, becoming stunned, changes in complexion, uncontrolled shaking of the body, etc., etc. Vyabhichari bhavas are 33 in number and include, for example, envy, disgust, anxiety, joy, indignation, bashfulness, and so on. All these bhavas are transitory. This is how we conclude that there are 48 emotional states that any human being goes through in their process of reaching the final stage. 41 plus 8 Sattvika Bhavas. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu describes them in the 74th sloka in the 5th chapter of 2nd canto, namely these 48 emotional states. A devotee who has one predominant Sthayi Bhava can experience one of the 7 secondary ratis which I described, which are described through dance poses. Added to these 7, and the 33 Vyabhichari Bhavas, which I described just now, we get a total of 48 emotional states when you add 7 to the 33 and then the 8. In the spiritual world, all actions and emotions arise from the Sthayi Bhava and this continuously submerges the devotees in an ocean of Paramananda or bliss. Finally, where do we understand the above concept of rasa, Anurasa and Uparasa and Aparasa, etc.? Yatseveya Bhagavataha Kutastasya Madhudvishaha Ratiraso Bhave Tivraha Padayo Vyasana Ardhanaha. The association of a bona fide spiritual master, like the sage Maitreya, can be of absolute help in achieving spiritual attachment for the direct service of Bhagavan. The Lord is the enemy of Madhu demon, or in other words, he is the enemy of the suffering of his pure devotees. The word Ratirasaha is significant in this verse. Service to Bhagavan is rendered in different spiritual rasas or relationships. Can be neutral, active, friendly, parental, and conjugal. In any which form you want to, you will still reach Bhagavan. A living entity in the liberated position of transcendental or spiritual service to Bhagavan becomes attracted to one of the above-mentioned rasas, which are all positive. And when one is engaged in spiritual loving service to Bhagavan, one's service attachment through bhakti in the material world is automatically vanquished and becomes non-existent when he and Brahman become one and the same. Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, sloka 59 said, Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha rasavargam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects continue to remain. You cannot kill them. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a much higher taste, namely for Bhagavan, that devotee is fixed in my consciousness. This is what Bhagavan Krishna says to Arjuna. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinaha. But rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. You may remember, if you have attended the Narayaniam series, especially the chapter referring to Kapila and Devahuti, wife of sage Kardama, and how the ecstatic mother Devahuti praises her son Kapila, one of the incarnations of Parandama. When Devahuti became freed from Ajnana, Devahuti praises Lord Kapila. She forgets for a moment that Kapila was her son. Then she realizes it is Parabrahman is standing in front of her. She raises a profound question and also answers the question right away. That is there in Srimad Bhagavatam in the 3rd canto, 33rd chapter. Sattvam bruto me jatarena natha katam nu yasyo dare etadasit Vishwam Yugante Vatapatra Ekaha Chete Smamaya Shishuhu Arangripanaha. Devahuti says, O Bhagavane, Kapila, O Krishna, Sakshat Supreme Brahman, you have taken birth as Kapila from my abdomen, from my womb. Sattvam Bruto Me Jatarena Nata. How is that possible for the inexplicably huge one, that's you, who has in his own belly the entire cosmos with all its manifestation? Katham nu yasyodara etad asit Vishwam Yugante Vatapatra Ekaha. At one level, you have all the andas right into your stomach. And the answer to me on second thoughts is, yes, that's possible. You know why? Because at the end of the yugas, when the time period is all lapsed up, you will be lying down on a leaf of a banyan tree, and that too like a small boy, and you will be licking the toe of your lotus foot. If that is the ultimate Brahman as a Vatapatra, he could have all the andas in his kukshi, and he could also be there in my womb as my child. Vishwam Yugante Vatapatra Ekaha Shetesma Maya Shishuhu Arangripanaha. Therefore, I don't have the question anymore. You could have been in my Jatara. Sattvam Bruto Me Jatarena Nata. Thirupanazhvar captured, if not enhanced, the sentiment of what Devahuti talked through his monumental poem like this. Alamamarathin Ilemel Uru Palaganai Nyalamelu Mundan Arangathu Aravin Anayan Kola Mamani Aramum Muttu Tamum Mudivilladu Oril Nilemeni Ayo Nerekontadi and Engineer. Thirupanazhvar's great work is known as Amalanadi Piran. The meaning of this Tamil Cheyyul is, Pasuram is, one who ate up all the worlds, namely, who took all andams and kundams and everything else and kept it in his kuchi, and yet slept on a tender leaf of the huge banyan tree. As a small boy, is reclining on the sweet mattress of Thiruvandalvan, who is Adisesha at Srirangam. The black divine form of that Periya Perumal, which is without any comparison, which is adorned with so many ornaments such as a chain made of great gemstones, chain of pearls, etc., attracted my heart's humility. Alas, what can I do for this? Nilimeni ayyo neregundadi en enjinaye. Kolamamani aramum muttu tamamum mudivalladu orelil. Alamamarathin ilemel oru balaganai ஞாலமேழும் உண்டவன் அரங்கத்து அரவின் அணையான் ஞாலமேழும் உண்டான் அரங்கத்து அரவின் அணையான் நிறை கொண்டது என் நெஞ்சினையே. Thirupanazhvar, one of the 12 Alvars, belonged to the 8th century common era, was believed to be the son of a couple from the Panar community. His contributions of just 10 verses known as Samaranadipiran among the 4,000 stanzas in the Nalayar Divya Prabandham are like studded gems of Tamil poetry, contributing to the philosophical and theological beliefs of Vaishnavism. Panazhvar Avatara Utsavam is celebrated in Srirangam and for 10 days in Azhagiya Manavala Perumal Kovil in Orayur in Thanjavur district. The verses of Thirupanazhvar and other 12 Alvars are recited as a part of daily prayers and during festive occasions in several Vishnu temples known as Nuthiyattu Tirupati in southern India. We will see more on an insight into Natya Shastra's highlights into musicology in the next session through the prism of Krishna Leela Tarangini again. Thank you.
Narayana 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 Narayana